but the actual phone number to dial is at the bottom of the agenda. I mean, of the email.
Yeah.
And I forwarded it to him again today. So if he just scrolls to the bottom of the email, it
Okay.
says there, if you want to join.
Okay, all right,
Call the
I'll just
number.
tell him that and figure it out. Okay.
It's like the world's your oyster.
Are we ready?
Hi there, welcome.
Okay, I'm calling the policy committee, FAMPO policy committee meeting to order. And if you could rise for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America. The republic for which it stands, one
nation, under God, indivisible.
and justice for all.
All right, if we could get a roll call, please.
Lori Hayes,
Here.
Bill McIntosh,
Here.
Crystal Vanucci,
Here.
Jonathan Gerlach,
Here.
Shannon Holmes,
Here.
Drew Mullins,
Here.
Oh,
Chris Yakubowski,
Here.
Meg Bonke, Monica Gary, Marcy Parker,
Here.
Bob Schneider,
Here.
Deontay Diggs,
Here.
Pamela Young,
Here online.
David Brown, Jason Graham, Gerald Childress, Jacob Lane, Kathy Coffey, and Joe Stainsby. Right, Chair, we have one.
thank you. And can I get a motion to approve the committee agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that carries. All right, and I am going to open the public hearing for the resolution 25-19, adopting an amendment to the FY 24 through 27 Transportation Improvement Program to add FRT 0025 FXB Go. And we can take these both at the same time. The resolution 25-21, adopting the amendment to the FY 24-27 Transportation Improvement Program to adjust funding for the FRT 0002 Fredericksburg Regional Transit Replacement Rolling Stock. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to that?
Our central HVAC, and this is an update to our HVAC funding out at our maintenance facilities. The other resolution is for our rolling stock agenda to change that up, so anybody has any questions on that answer?
All right, anyone? All good? Okay,
Anyone online who wants to comment? No.
all right, and then we'll close the public hearing. And public involvement, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak at this point in time? But we do
Got
have
some
one,
written.
yeah. Okay,
Yes, Madam Chair, we have two comments received for the meeting. The first one from Kim. Good day. I would like to make some suggestions for the DRE service. I've heard that weekend service is anticipated, which is great. I would definitely take advantage of that since I do not drive. I also wanted to suggest bus routes that could run to and from the Spotsylvania DRE station and to extend Amtrak service to the Spotsylvania station since adequate parking is available. Offering weekend service is greatly appreciated, so the trains will run frequently. If it's successful, how about offering holiday service as well? I do have family members that ride Amtrak to visit frequently. My daughter works at Washington National Airport. She drives daily to and from the airport. You could offer midday service northbound. That would be an available option of getting back and forth to work. Thank you for taking the time to hear my suggestions. The second comment from Michael Meyer. No more state, local, federal funding for this local port program. Get 4 passenger vans and you can transport the majority of the few regular riders, high rollers, to Mary Washington Hospital. This can be done with local Fredericksburg funding, not my state, Stafford County, federal tax dollars. No matter how well Fred thinks they have blacked out the window, you can still see their riders on the sunset. Everyone involved in this raid to be prosecuted by the IG under the waste fraud. Case. I can please the public.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna move on to number 7, the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items that they need to pull or?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
wasn't here for the minutes approval of the last meeting. I'm happy to abstain from consent. if it's easier.
Well, I mean, we could take that out and then vote on the rest of it and then vote on the consent agenda. Okay,
Motion to approve consent minus A.
all right.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that carries. And then now we'll go ahead and ask for a motion of the approval of the October 21, 2024 Policy Committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries.
Abstains.
Oh, right. All right. Okay, and now we go on to Ian.
Lydia, if you can pull up the slides for the administrator's report. There we go. Thanks. If you can just go to slide 1. Sorry, Chair, we seem to have a, that's the end. There we go. Further. Okay, first slide. There we go. So tonight I need to tell you about a program which we haven't spoken about much in the last 3 or 4 years. On the 3rd of November 2020, I began work here. So I'm now chairing my 5th year. Whether that's good or bad, I'll leave you all to decide. But when I started on the 3rd of November 2020, one of the first things I was told is there's this thing called RM3P, and you need to go and join this board and committee that's working on this project. I didn't know anything about it. Basically, it's a project to encourage multimodal mobility throughout Northern Virginia and down to the FAMPO region. It's very complex, it has many moving parts, but a milestone was reached in November. The smart parking app and technology was launched in our region on the 12th of November on a trial basis. And so I just feel like I should alert you to this project because it's been happening for 4 years in the background. People like Marcy Parker and myself and Lee Anderson, who's in the back there, have been involved in the project for all these years. It's been run essentially by VDOT, although it's a project that began with the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. So would you move to the next slide? So these are the big elements in this project, and I'm not tonight going to go into all the deep rabbit holes that we could go down in on each of these items. But it is using smart technology to try and support people who use transit and alternative modes of transportation, as well as promoting those so that more people use VRE or OmniRide or van pools or whatever else. And so there's a data platform. The decision architecture system supports the ability of the state to be able to deal with crises. There's a big explosion or a fire or something. There's a coordinated behind the scenes system to help deal with those. There is a dynamic incentivization, which they're going to bring into this to incentivize people to do things that are better options. And then there's the commuter parking information system, which I'm going to tell you about tonight. That is the thing that I have been asked to co-chair. There's a committee that I'm co-chairing with the Honorable Marcy Parker and one other staff member, which you'll see later on. So next slide. So they started last week with a proof of concept was launched on Tuesday, the 12th of November.
Ian, can I just interrupt you for
You
just
may.
a second? So I know the VRE lot reports how many parking spaces are already like on a monthly basis. Are they getting that information through this?
No,
Or-
this is just started.
Okay, how are they getting that information then?
We'd have to ask VRE. I don't know.
You know, when they, on our schematic every
I'm
month?
assuming somebody's doing a
know
count
about-
once a month.
Do a point, we do point.
Oh, they do, okay,
So they're
thank
physically
you.
counting. This is a little different. This
Why
is
we had-
using technology. And the first set of parking lots that are using this new technology are in Fairfax, in Prince William, and in Stafford. So VDOT owned and VRE lots, I believe, in Stafford have got the first opportunity to be part of this proof of concept program. They are using smart technology through your cell phones as usual and other devices to work out how many cars are in the parking lot, how many spaces are taken. They know how many spaces there are in the parking lot, and so they use technology to work out how many parking spaces are available in real time,
Mhm.
and that information gets fed back to the public. So currently there's an app that you can download on your phone, which will be an interface between the technology and you in your motor vehicle. Like Google tells you where the crash is, this device and the software will tell you where there's parking available if you are a commuter who is using VRE or any of the commuter parking lots that OmniRide operates from, that van pools operate from. It's this part of the project deals with live information about parking availability if you're a commuter and long distance commute. Next slide.
But not Spotsy.
Well, this is a trial. So
Okay.
it's new technology that's not been used widely before. And so they're doing a trial to first verify that the system does actually work and meets expectations. So they've chosen 3 sets of parking lots in Stafford, Prince William, and Fairfax as the trial.
Okay.
And if the trial works, then it gets rolled out to all government-owned lots, not yet on private lots. So you can see the picture on the right where the bus is. You'll see on the pole up there, there's a code that you can scan on your phone to get the app. They're doing online advertising. The company that won the bid to provide the technology is called ParkZen. And I'll talk about that in a moment. It's from a university in Louisiana. Some students and professors got together and started a business and started creating the software, and that software is now called ParkZen. And this is the first big trial of the software. They have it operating on one university campus successfully. This is the next trial. Next slide. That's unfortunately a bit faded because of the projector. I think the bulb is going in that projector. But anyway, there you can see the parking lots that are in the trial. The Brook Road VRE lot, Backlick Road VRE lot, the Leland Road VRE lot, Horner Road commuter lot, the Stringfellow Road P&R lot, and Saratoga Park and Ride lot. Eventually, all of those balloon-shaped dots on that map have parking lots which will be covered by the ParkZen technology if the proof of concept proves successful. So the first 6 lots and the ones in our region are in Stafford. Next slide. That is a lot of information. I'm going to send you these slides tomorrow morning when we send out the resolutions so that you can dig into the detail if the technology itself interests you. But basically it's the same as the phone apps that you have for other applications on the road. This is a further piece of software that will provide you with parking information. And at the end, if this trial proves successful, they're going to make the data available to the Waze and Google Maps and all these other apps that are already on your phone or anybody else. The data will be made available to whoever, so that the public can find out quickly as people come back to using VRE, as the ridership of OmniRide grows and the lots start filling up. We've seen the start of people going back to using what's it called? Where you get into somebody else's car and they take you to DC.
Slugging?
Slugging, sorry, my mind just went for a second.
Like.
We've
Called abductions.
we've seen slugging. Lee, at the back of the room will tell you about slugging out starting to tick up again. And so as those lots get full, this will become useful. Next slide. So there's the steering committee for the parking section of this. We're only dealing with the parking. So Marcy, myself, and Marsha Field from V.OIP head office are the steering committee just to look after this parking project, to see it through the trial and so on.
Those are bad pictures.
Those are terrible pictures.
I
We did not,
Actually, a very good picture.
we,
When you see the picture.
we did not choose these pictures. They were chosen by
I mean.
the RM3P
Yeah.
staff in Richmond. Next slide. So, in terms of the River Crossing Parkway, we're changing gears now, just to give you an idea of where we are in terms of the timeline. Tonight, you're going to get a presentation. I promised you always that we would not have a big reveal somewhere else, that the policy committee would see it first, because what will happen is that the Freelance Star and the radio stations and everybody else will call you, and if you don't have the information to answer the questions, it becomes awkward. So we always present to the policy committee first. That's unusual. Normally I go through the stakeholder group and then the TAC and then whatever else. So the big reveal we bring into you first. We will still take it to the TAC and the other committees as well, but just so that you can answer the question when you get the phone call and don't feel like you've been hijacked because no one told you what's
Right.
going on. So that's tonight. Public meeting is scheduled for Wednesday night. Then we have a presentation to the CTAC on the 11th, the GPAC on the 9th, the TAC on the 6th of January. And then we'll get feedback to the policy committee on the public meeting and the options that are presented to the public in January, February timeframe, depends on what happens. And then the study report, February, March, depending again on time, availability, and whether any additional wrinkles occur. But that's the rough timeline of where we are in the process.
Anybody have any questions? Dante, did you have a question?
The meeting on Wednesdays, the city, right?
It's at the ballpark, the conference center, and
Can't go in.
thank you to the city.
I have a quick question, Lori.
Yes.
Okay, Ian, I just read,
Yes,
I was
ma'am.
trying to find the email real quick in reference to the app that Prince William just rolled out a week ago. And I was trying to figure out, is this the same, similar? And if so, why are we not piggybacking off of what they're already doing? Are we restarting something, or is this just entirely different because it's about parking spaces and knowing where you are is in the new parking deck that they created in Prince William?
So this is called the Park Zen app. And I don't believe, Marcy, that they are opening Park Zen in Prince William yet.
I thought there were lots in Prince William
Well,
for this test.
Okay, so just go back 2 slides for me. I just want to answer factually, so we don't, back, you're going forward.
Sorry.
Back
Porter Road was on the list.
there. Okay, so there, Madam Chair, if you look there, there is a commuter lot in Prince William. So yes, this is the same app, to answer the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
And eventually it will, I couldn't really look at see the map, but eventually it will cover Fredericksburg, VRE.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
we gave them a list of all the park and ride lots in there. Perfect.
So that's all
Well-
we covered, assuming that it works. So it's working at a university campus.
So optimistic.
It's working on a university campus right now, so we're assuming it will work here as well. But it is fairly new technology. It's not often that state institutions adopt brand new technology, but in this case we are. So far, so good. Seems to be working. Let's see what happens.
Does he use to count the cars again? Is it, you said phones?
It uses phones to locate how many vehicles drive in and out of the lot, so it can calculate the totals of vehicles in the lot. And they subtract that from the available spaces, and then they send you the information to your phone.
Well, you had a question.
If this is successful, would there be opportunities for localities and other groups that run public parking lots to sort of link into this? You know, I'm thinking of the city, we run parking garages, and if it was all on one app for the whole region, that would be convenient.
Yeah, I don't know that Work then collects money. So there's some apps like at Virginia Tech, they use Park Mobile. And that doesn't tell me what's open, but it takes my money.
I'm just thinking in terms of,
But it's 'cause
in
the
terms
city
of
charges.
providing availability.
Yeah.
Right, data.
So,
It would be great if we could.
so the
Everybody on.
the contract is very specific right now. It's for this specific list of parking lots that we have. It's a long list. There are a lot of parking lots included. What could be done for additional lots that are not state owned? I don't know. That will be a
Later conversation.
conversation.
Well, as a member of the steering committee, can I put that bug in your ear?
We'll
It's a later
raise
conversation.
it as, I will raise it as a question to the board of RM3P and ask what their comments are on that. But it's been a long process, so they take things very slowly because it's new technology. There's lots involved behind the scenes. So I guess that they will probably respond and say it's something we can consider, but we don't have it programmed and it's not in the contract.
Hey, Chris.
Just a quick question, I'm not trying to stir up anything, except, what's the point? And coming from Spotsy, if I'm going to go and get on the VRE, we have one parking lot. So if it's full, then do I check and go, oh, I can drive to Stafford? Is that the point behind this?
So remember in Northern Virginia, who started this idea,
Well, yeah,
they have multiple lots
Yeah.
and they also have people actually using those lots
Right.
more than we have right now down here. So the assumption is as our ridership on VRE and OmniRide grows, the lots will again fill up. And if the one's full, like here in Fredericksburg, you've got a VRE lot there, you've got the city-owned lot there, you've got these parkings here in our backyard. So there's multiple lots around this station. You could move from the one to another one. But you could find out if there's parking available there before you drive there.
and how reliable is it?
You'd have to be, everybody would have to have this on their phone
And yes.
in order for it to be correct, right?
It does account for.
Well, no, that's how you have to sign up for it, don't you?
You have to sign up to get information to your phone, but it checks any phone that
Oh,
is moving into the parking lot.
I think your slide said 96%.
It's 96% successful
Mm.
in terms of
So I missed that slide, is that what you're trying to say?
It was on the wall
That
of all
little-
words.
which you'll get in your inbox tomorrow morning.
I don't say hi to you when you come in.
You know, I'm assuming the 94, the other 6% might include people who walk into the parking lot that don't have a car, right? It's possible. I don't know.
And did you say the company does other apps like this for other localities, or this is a new thing? for them?
No, they have it operating on a university campus as one client. I think our region is the second client.
Where are they incorporated and based out of?
They operate out of the university in Louisiana. I've got the name of the university on the slide, but again, it's in all that fine print.
LSU, maybe?
Yeah. It is LSU.
Go ahead, Marcy, it's on the slide. Yeah, exactly.
Wondering how it handles multiple people in one vehicle itself.
Right.
Rated as multiple cars.
Yeah, a little bit of, so, well, I'm not on the committee, but I'm familiar with this type technology. That's why it's 96% accurate, because they're counting basically the NFC fields that are coming through.
Okay.
So it's double cars. How many cell phones did I see on the table at one point? So 3. So when you add those in, that's what actually has the impact on that accuracy rate.
Okay.
So it's assuming every phone is a car, one phone equals one car, so 3 phones go in. If they were, for example, a married couple
Driving
working
in and out
at
of all-
Pentagon, there's 2 people in one car going in a 6.
So there might be more available spaces than the app.
Correct. So what this does is this gets it down to algorithmically, what is the accuracy rating? So once they figure out what are the patterns and the habits, they can then adjust the calculation rate pro forma and then make the adjustment for calculations. So if it's a route that has high Pentagon performance, you might have lots of three phone people. If it's just people traveling in to Washington DC, maybe it's a 1 phone per person. So that's kind of how they utilize this. They've been toying with this for a number of years.
So
Yeah.
So 2 great things about this. One is that there's no cost to the public. You get the information for free. I think if I'm correct, the apps like Google and Waze and all that also get the data free.
Right.
So the state basically is funding the technology.
Okay.
And it's not meant to make a profit, it's meant to help the public, it's a public service.
What kind of private- I'm sorry.
go
what kind
ahead,
of
Jen.
Privacy laws are there though? So like we're asking our residents to sign up for something and this is where you get, that's why I asked where it was based out of.
That's to get the data. If I wanna know, so I only have to set up
You
on the
allow an
computer.
app access to your device, you allow an access to an app to track you, so that, but some of them don't, and so there are some that, I'm just curious what those people are signing up for as far as terms and conditions and
There's,
what are our constituents signing up for exactly?
so VDOT has had a team working on this for 4 years. Just signing the contract has taken 2 years. So they have looked into every one of these data. There's a whole, spend months just talking about data privacy and making sure that they do not access other data of yours, that it's only about the movement in and out of these parking lots for cars and that kind of thing. I can't give you every little detail. There is an endless list of things that they've had to check. It had to meet VDOT's software standards, it had to meet privacy laws, and also because VDOT effectively is the client now, VDOT and DRPT jointly are the client, they've had to make sure that this meets their standards. So it's not just meeting a private company standards, it's meeting state of Virginia standards. And the state has investigated these contracts, and it took very long to get the contract signed because a whole lot of different departments had to go through this whole vetting process.
So just one question. So Bob, when we were at PRTC the other night and we were talking about, I downloaded it on my phone, City Mapper. I think that we were talking about how you can see all of the different bus lines and things like that. I think you had mentioned a different program.
Or prevalent out of London and other much larger cities.
Yeah, so would this almost be a duplicate of that, or is it something totally different? Okay,
What this is, and it's great that it's being tested now of all times because the lots aren't full. So there's the joy of being wrong is that there's still someone can park there.
Yeah.
But pre-pandemic, if you were traveling to the 234 lot, for example, if you weren't in by 7:30, you didn't have a place to park. Period. No question, 7:30 was the cutoff. And what you had was people pouring off of Route 1 at the exit and then driving up and down the roads looking for a parking spot. This gives with 96% accuracy and concept, lots full. Like you could try it if you want, but lots full. The good news is if you travel about 1.5 miles that way, there's a lot that probably has 6 cars in it. But people don't know to travel 1.5 miles down to look over by the Prince William Forest where there's a vacant lot. Same thing with Horner Road. People would park illegally all over Horner Road when there was another lot around the corner in Lake Ridge that they could have used. That lot was so underutilized, it got turned into a park. So they actually dug up the asphalt. And that was within 2 miles because people they're not on their phone looking for park and ride lots. They're not on their phone looking where else can I park? This is designed to fill that void when it was envisioned 4 or 5 years ago. And now it's finally getting to fruition for deployment. So we're very excited from the standpoint of we are watching capacity. I think last Thursday, the I-66 University lot hit 70% capacity. That's 2,900 spaces, or is that 4,000 spaces? It hit 70% capacity. We'll get the final number. We'll get a report from I-66 Mobility Partners. They send drones up, take a picture, come down, and they just basically count how many vacancies are per roads. It takes them just a couple minutes. But you're seeing this booming return of commute patterns, especially Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
If I can, 2 things, well, 3 things. Number one, why not just put up a big sign saying there is more parking this way in another lot? That to begin even years ago. I don't know why they wouldn't have done that. Number 2, you said it's not costing any money, then this is
It's not costing the user of the parking lot anything.
okay, so how much are we paying?
The
taxpayers?
I can get you the numbers if I haven't memorized them,
Okay.
but we have a contract for 4 years.
Okay,
And I've got the dollar value of the contract for the 4 years.
okay.
In the material.
And
That was
that,
a federal grant, wasn't it?
There's a combination of grants and there's a session going on now about DRPT and VDOT slowly building it into their budget for the foreseeable future. That's not all signed yet, but for the first 4 years, it's funded with grants and other funding.
and my third is, I'm sure, airports, Disney does it fantastically, where they know how many parking spaces are in all their decks. It seems like this is, we're starting back there when people are all the way up here. It just seems kind of, I don't know, kind of, elementary. As opposed to where people are currently, you go to, National Airport or go to
Mhm.
Atlanta Airport. And boom, this, why?
This is an infrastructure light application.
Okay.
In those fixed places, they've put in fixed infrastructure. So you gotta have either cameras or you gotta have those little senders on the concrete above you to actually check how many cars there are. And instead of rolling all of that physical wiring and infrastructure across, how many parking garages are there in the ultimate thing here? There's a big number. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a lot of infrastructure cost that you have to put in up front. Whereas this is infrastructure light. There's not very little physical infrastructure that has to go and be loaded onto the.
Okay,
Each
so
of the
is this the way
parking
with the future, or that's where I'm at, it just seems like, no offense, taking 4 years to get to this point to somebody who has a university in Louisiana, and that's all that their claim to fame is just, it's, I understand the point to it now that you've explained it, but
I notoriously, one of the board meetings told them all that I thought they'd taken way too long to roll this out, and felt like I should apologize the following meeting because I was a little rough on them.
oh, I feel like
Marcy,
that on a lot of
Marcy
these
will
meetings,
bear
so-
me out. I was a little too blunt.
Apologize, I feel like.
So I felt
feel
like
that.
I felt like I maybe said it a little too harshly, but anyway, we've made the point that this took too long. Because 4 years of our lives sitting on these committee calls and so on. But technology does work where it's operating at a university. We will now see in Stafford County and these other jurisdictions if it works in the real world outside of a university campus, which is a little more controlled. This is a little bit more away from eyes and control and all that sort of thing. So we'll see how it works.
Okay.
And the commitment is staggered so that if it fails, we don't have to pay all that money, right? It's very specific benchmarks have to be met for the payments to occur. It's a very controlled contract. It's not like here's a bunch of money, just, do it.
Ian, just remind me again, what's your rollout time again? What's the timing?
So there's a 6-month trial now.
6-month trial,
But
okay,
then they
that's
will
good.
roll out phase 2, phase 3, phase 4
Okay,
of the rest of the parking lots.
okay, so we'll get regular updates on this.
We'll bring you
Okay.
updates when we have them.
All right, great, thank you. All
Thank you.
right, well.
And if you don't believe me, you can always call Marcy. She's also sat 4 years on these calls. Okay, so we've gone through the timeline for the Parkway study. Next one. Finally, you remember last month I gave you 2 terms that we talked about? We've got 2 more.
Okay.
Only 1 more month after today, and then we'll stop. So getting on the same page about terminology, Lida, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. So our 2 terms today are sprawl or urban sprawl specifically, and also dense development. So I'll walk through those one at a time and kind of, you can begin to compare and contrast them. But sprawl is kind of, as the name would suggest, is development that's spread out over these large swaths of land, and also is often distinctive land uses that are being developed. So it's not an integrated mixed use development, but it'll be like a residential development spread out over this large piece of land, and is not very compact, and it's just your typical kind of suburbs, really, which there are a lot of around here. And these are some really good pictures, I think, for those. But what does this have to do with transportation? Is that as these developments are being spread out, distance to get to where you want to go the destinations you're trying to reach in your day-to-day are further away. Also, I think a kind of key characteristic of suburbs are cul-de-sacs. So a lot of times these residential developments are all kind of isolated off of this one main route. So you have farther to go, and all of these developments that are being built up along this one road have to use that one road. So there's more cars on the road because you have to drive everywhere. And all those cars on the same road, essentially this can kind of, lead to congestion like we're thinking about now with the new travel demand model and the maps that we've been putting out. So it does definitely have a link to transportation. To contrast that, we can talk about dense development.
The D word.
Ugh.
Calm,
Uh-oh.
calm.
Out of here.
And what I want to emphasize and what I've really enjoyed reading about looking at dense development is actually how diverse it is. I think those who are averse to dense development have this one giant apartment complex in mind, maybe brutalist architecture.
Yeah.
But
Away from the.
there's a lot of different ways we can achieve density in development. It's not just apartments, but garden apartments, multiplexes, multifamily housing. And also what I've really enjoyed reading about specifically is granularity of development. So I'll just go to the next slide, which has some photographic examples of dense development. These two are in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is just across the Hudson River from Manhattan. And this middle image is from Georgetown in DC. But you can see here, this is that granularity I was talking about, where this whole block was developed by one person creating all these units, rather than the more diverse ownership of just splicing up the land, but still making development dense on that same land area. And the same can be said for different uses of development, like if these are all storefronts. It essentially condenses the destinations of where you're trying to get. And so then options for travel like transit and walking, biking are a lot more viable. They're possible in these communities when in the suburbs, it's a lot more difficult for those to be viable transportation options.
Chickens.
The roof, yeah.
Have you got chickens?
That's another great thing about dense development is it also really preserves open land outside of the urban center. We have a lot of people, like just in our region, we can think about the population growth that is projected through the year 2050. And if all those people, want their own home with their 1 acre or, however much land, we won't have these swaths of open land anymore. They'll be filled with homes. Or at least we won't have as much as we have now. But if we do dense residential development, we can protect a lot of that open land that's on the outskirts of our community, while also creating communities that are walkable, where transit is a viable transportation option. And we aren't, while more people are moving into the region, we're not getting as many cars also moving into the region and increasing congestion.
Yay.
So that's my.
Thank you for that. I mean, there's a lot to, we could probably debate this till the cows come home, because it's like poking a bear for me. And so thank you for that. I need to come down from my little anxiety attack I'm having right now. But
You'll know that we as FAMPO can't tell jurisdictions what to do.
Thank
But we-
God.
But we just remind you of what's going on around you.
well, yeah, I know.
What they're moving away from.
But
The
Well-
red is what we worried about up there. that red.
we have very diverse counties here, and while I'm appreciative of anybody who desires that kind of thing, that isn't the vibe that I get. I mean, Chris and Drew can, say that's not true if they feel that way, but
I feel like I need to apologize by saying.
Let's,
but thank you for that. Yes.
thanks, Lita.
If you have any data
regarding everything that you were just telling us. Could you send that to us or have you send it?
Sure.
Then to the converse, have you done any research on like land conservation and not increasing land development and density? So like if we did like 1 house per 6 acres, you did down zoning, you limited the amount of houses that can be built in a locality, how that could reduce the traffic, and then you use the offsetting funds to do land conservation. So if we're gonna take one side, then I would like information on the other side.
Yeah, there's,
So I'm not asking her to do, pardon me, if you don't mind, I'm not asking for additional information. I just want to see what did you research to come to what you just presented to us? Because I just want to see the data that you had for that. If you have something in addition that Supervisor Benicia
Sure.
for,
we,
obviously send that along as well.
we're not gonna sidetrack too much from the link with transportation though, because we are not gonna tell spots of any county how much density they should have on which block. That's the function of their planning department. We just focus on
Those?
the transportation link. The
Oh,
cost.
yeah,
That's all I wanted to.
Former-
What was.
the former board.
Y'all got unelected.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
meeting.
All right.
All righty. Are we, you're finished then?
Done.
All right, we'll go on to our action and discussion items. Project FBINA mini update.
Leader's gonna
Yep.
walk you through some slides. Two of the maps again up here on the wall.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to read on the screen.
So we'll just go.
You've not seen the no build, this map over here you haven't seen before. We showed you the full build one. And these two maps, question is spot the difference, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can't spot any difference, then we're wasting our money and our time. But there are some differences, and Leader's going to show you that we've done some work to help you find the differences.
So this map was made by taking the congestion, both of those maps, and subtracting it from each other, so you can see where the projects that we do build in the full build model have reduced congestion, which is the purple color. And then the orange is where a congestion has actually increased. And so it makes sense that congestion would increase in some of these areas, because reducing congestion isn't just getting rid of all those cars, but it's distributing them different ways. So I think it'd be unrealistic to expect maybe no congestion increases on any roads. It's just about, kind of getting one step ahead of it. And overall, I think, we have more congestion reduction with the projects, at least compared to the no builds.
So that's while the color is fading on that damn projector, you can see the purple is where we did achieve something, right? If we build all these projects in the CLRP, the purple is the areas where you will see less congestion than if we'd not built those projects. I think Lida explained it very well. But the red is, as she said, when you add capacity in one part of the network, you allow more cars to go through there. And then when they get to the next traffic light or the next narrowing of the road, there's a new bottleneck. And
Right.
so remember that phrase from my first month at FAMPO, you can't build your way out of congestion, right? So that's why you get those oranges where you create additional
Yeah.
congestion by solving it somewhere else. It's because of that phenomenon. I think you have one more slide, I think.
Yeah, I have a few.
Two more.
These are just looking at all the road links in the model and the distribution of congestion across them. So you can see where the full build kind of shifts that distribution of different congested roads, not by much, but this next slide.
Just hold on 1 second, Lida. The green is where is the cumulative total of the road movements where there is low traffic.
Okay.
The bright dark red is where it's extreme congestion. And you see from the left box to the right box, the extreme red reduces in number and it moves to a much lower priority in the list, right? So there is movement between the
Okay.
left chart and the right chart.
Great, thank you.
This is for the links in the model, so it's not the whole length of the road, but each
Segment.
segment of the road.
Can I real quick ask a question? I remember last time we spoke about how much money is it gonna cost to do everything in the
3.2 billion.
3.2 billion, okay.
That's our
Today's number.
current constrained long range plan. $2021.
Oh, no dollars.
We will next year,
Cheaper now.
after the smart scale results are made public, we will revise that list, remove projects that have already been built, add projects that we would like to add, and so that number will change. Everything will get more expensive, I can promise you, but we will swap out projects that are completed, put in new projects that we want, and you'll all decide which projects you want to add to that.
Thank you.
I have one question. When we say congestion, because I was reading at the bottom, thanks for putting this next to me so I can read it. Is that it's the amount of capacity on a roadway. So if there's lots of cars on a road, we're calling that congested.
It's the volume of how many cars are on the road relative to how many cars that road could hold.
It's a volume divided by capacity.
Right, so how do we get, because I would think of congestion, and the traffic that bothers me is the traffic that doesn't move. If you're on a road and you're moving about 50 miles an hour, I don't care if it's full. So are we not looking, so that's not congestion in this makeup, it's just the number of cars, what that road is created for.
Yeah, if you have higher than about, Brad, 80%, 80 to 90% of the capacity used, the cars are not moving, because that last 10% is the squeaky little gaps and, you know, the turn lane that's not being used or whatever. When you're over 80 and definitely over 85%, you're already slowing. You're driving very slowly on that road. You're not free moving traffic anymore.
Okay, and
If you get above capacity, which we do get,
right,
it's that very dark red color. And if you look at Stafford up there,
Yeah.
look at all that dark red, that is more than capacity. So that you're more than one. And if you're already not moving at 90%, when you're over one, just gridlock. This is peak hour. Will operate better during the day, but in peak hour, it's going to be a mess.
okay, then a question I have is that, because I was sitting here and I did find one right up here, Dante, where it does turn, this is yellow and that is green. So I did find one up here.
So here's another one I'll show you. If you look at Route 2, Dixon Road and the Tidewater Trail.
Right.
See that it's green. Look, the whole road is green. And over here, it's a mess.
Okay.
So the projects we're building are having an impact. It's the reason we made that purple map with purple squiggles is because it's hard to find them just by looking like this.
What is,
So
Yes.
but when you've got them there, you've already selected the ones that change.
so, and no, and again, I don't mean to, because this just got through the thinking is that, so if the road is built to capacity and those roads aren't moving, is there something short of expanding that road that can help that road? And we've talked about it for years, turn lanes and things like that to get that traffic out of the through. Do we, or can we, because 3.2 billion to do this still doesn't, I mean, it's a lot of money. And I know it could be worse, I get that. But are there better ways that we can spend our money, I guess is what I'm trying to say, as opposed to, hey, let's widen, I mean, for years it was widen, our 6-year plan was widen, you know, this road, this road, this road, this road. And then we went and we started doing on Harrison Road, I know we did the expansion up at Route 1. You didn't have to do all of Harrison because that's not where the problem was. We focused on where the problem was and it was more cost effective. So that's why I'm wondering.
There are 4, maybe 5 things you can do, but I'll use the phrase that Bob coined about a few months back. I have to tell you, the baby is ugly, right? You're not gonna like it.
Use that for that.
He said,
Call somebody baby ugly.
he said it in a very gentle way, but he was making a point. And the point is that the answers I have are all the ones you don't want to hear. So don't shoot me if you don't like the answers, but I'll tell you, there's 4 things you can do. Small amounts of improvement you can do with signal tweaking and putting a turn lane and that, but that generally gives you like a year or 2 until it gets to gridlock again. You can do that, and we're doing that on Route 3, and the reason why everybody's getting upset is because the improvements on Route 3 just not fixing it, they're just delaying it getting worse. So that does have an effect, but it's a limited effect. Next thing you can do is put people on transit, right? I don't like that, but that heavy transit works. Red bus is not heavy transit. VRE is heavy transit. To an extent, OmniRide buses are bigger capacity, but you have to have heavy transit and then it works, right? So US 1 and I-95 will get a little better if we put another 1,000 people per train on VRE, it will make a difference. Third thing you can do is change where you put the new housing. So zoning matters enormously. And what you're seeing about this map, I can tell you VRE's biggest problem right now with our region, and they'll be too polite to say it like this, so blame me, right? We see where the red is all this side of I-95, and VRE is this side of I-95. So the problem is we're allowing development, and you can see it in the approvals, the zoning changes, the zoning approvals, they're here. We're putting more housing here, nowhere near the transit. It's approving with Bob's new bus routes. Those are helping because they're coming here. But our problem is VRE is concerned, how do you get these people to the train station? So we're pulling more housing here that can't use transit. And so as we add another Fredericksburg sized population to the region every 5 years, we're putting the housing out here and they have to get places. They're going to get on Route 3 and Route 3 is going to become a gridlock. We know that even with our projects, look, it doesn't improve. And that's because we're allowing lots of development to happen here rather than where the train and the big highways are. Because then,
So we just stop it all.
well, you can't stop, unfortunately. It's unconstitutional to prevent anybody moving into your area, so we can't do that. But we can, you can
But we
develop a
can, there are
zoning
things you can
plan.
do, like we did in Stafford, we did down zoning, which
Yes.
eliminated people coming from
Yes.
the rural sprawl areas. And if you get rid of transfer development rights, which allow by right more higher density, you can get rid of that. There's things that you can do
There are
as
things
a
you can do
board
on
to
zoning.
limit that, to limit the amount of housing units. I think we limited our housing units in the rural area by like 20 or 40,000 unit. I can't remember the exact number, just by down zoning.
So that is
And
important.
so,
Yeah,
so,
we already did that too.
yeah, I know you guys
So-
did,
so-
but I'm just saying, like.
So you're absolutely correct. If you can stop putting housing in the rural areas where there isn't a road network, you improve the situation. Because as leaders, pictures, photographs showed,
But
if
then-
you put more and more of those out
but then
west,
if you keep
we
doing
don't have
your
the
suggestion
infrastructure.
of high density urban housing near the arteries, then more people move in to fill all that housing. If
Well,
you just
that-
don't build those, or
well-
you don't do massive rezonings and you leave it zoned A1, one house by right, and those areas, you eliminate the amount of residents moving in, so.
Well, and
I
you're
just wanna make
also,
Sure,
sure
but
we're
some of-
presenting both sides.
Some of those are already approved. Spotsy's already approved 20,000 more units. They already approved historically, years ago. Some of them are by right. You can't stop those. They're already done. I mean, listen,
Yeah, well, that's.
I'm not telling you
it's too
how to
late for
run
us.
it.
It's not too late for us, because there's still stuff coming through and, you know, I've asked before and I don't want to belabor the point, but you know, nobody can tie back all those apartments and how many people are riding the VRE from those apartments. So until somebody can give me some hard and fast data on that, I know conceptually this is what you do. And I think in Northern Virginia, it works beautifully, but we're not Northern Virginia. And so the apartments by the VRE
At the Spotsylvania train
at the
station.
Spotsylvania thing. Nobody, I've asked at VRE, you know, can you get the data on that? They can't really get the data on that. So until somebody comes out with something for what we're experiencing, I don't know that that's necessarily true. And meanwhile, you know, and mixed use is a joke. Because what happens is they come in and they're gonna put in commercial stuff and then a year later, 2 years later, oh, well, right? Oh, retail's dead. Oh, okay, well, thanks for telling us that now. You know, so,
And well, the final thing you can do is build more roads, but that doesn't ultimately work because it facilitates more cars to take more trips because the road is now free flow.
right, right.
So those are the 4 or 5 things you can do. Each one has consequences. Each one has the trade-offs that we were just hearing about. The thing you
Really?
can't do is stop people moving into the region, because
But we can if we don't build a whole lot of houses. We are not
Yeah.
constitutionally obligated to over zone properties to allow high density apartments or high density residential family units. We are not required to do that. In my opinion, it is our obligation to protect the residents who are already there from having to have high taxes because the state changed the proper laws. No new house pays for itself in our counties in the state of Virginia. It costs the taxpayer money to build schools, to build roads, to build libraries, court systems, and it doesn't pay. And so that is a true reality that we as local officials are up against. And so that's the big flaw in this paradigm.
Because you also have to look, and I know you want to say something, Monica, but you also have to look, and this is kind of going off of feedback, but you have to look at what your infrastructure is as far as the schools go. You know, I mean, if you can't, if you have no proffers or you're getting minimal proffers for road projects, it doesn't cut it. And then you have an overcrowding in the schools. Like at some point, you have to be able to say, we need to take a pause here for a little bit and catch our breath. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I'm not
Monica.
telling which options to pick. I'm just saying.
I
these are
know,
the
I
ones that
know.
are there, right?
Chris, you started this.
It's great discussion.
Wrap it up and put a bow on it, and maybe we can move on, because I feel like it is kind of off the deep end.
Yeah.
I know we can get really tense around this, and there's a lot of opinions and a lot of issues, and we all want to say our thing and represent our different perspectives. Pardon me. There's a lot has happened, right? We have some people, not anyone sitting at this table that I know of, you know, that have said, oh, I want to keep taxes low, but then they do this residential development. They don't get proffers for the school. We're stuck holding the bag when they move on to do other things. There's a lot that has happened. So I think right now, just looking at whatever Ian has to present to us, and we can sort of debate that among ourselves and our boards as we navigate those issues as they come up in the future, would be probably the best, most productive thing to do.
And if I might, all I was really trying to say is that if we are spending 3.2 billion. And that's what we're getting, is there something better that we can do with that money or something else we can add to it? Because in 25 years, when none of us are on this board, I just want to be able for them to look back and go, I really glad you guys did this, whatever that might be, that we don't get stuck in the attitude that, you know, let's build another load, let's, you know, do this, let's, you know, can we think a little bit more and go, 3.2 billion is a lot of money. Can it be better spent, or is this the best way we're spending? That's all.
And I echo what you're saying. That's why I was asking the question.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this and I'm like.
Yeah.
So part of what we're saying is we're bringing the maps not because we made them up. These are what the travel demand
The data.
predicts. And we are just saying there are difficult choices to make in the future.
Mhm.
We highlight them. We don't make decisions. We just highlight them, point out to you what's happening. The next thing we're going to do is analyze the cost of that 3.2 billion,
Right.
see what each project is costing and what that looks like in terms of
Right. Yep.
inflation, because they're going to cost more. No one likes bringing bad news, so it's
No.
At $3.2 billion.
yeah.
Um,
About half of it is already allocated. We already have the money.
and if one of the things that would help is transit, could that not buy a lot of transit to get to some of the places where, to get people to get to the western part?
That is an enormous question. We could spend 3 hours.
Everyone else.
Right.
One.
The answer is in some cases, yes, and in some cases, no. And Bob and the VRE people would love to tell you about which and which. In some cases, like in VRE and building the third track that we're building, adding all the extra trains, if we can ensure that people will actually use the trains in the next 10 years, yes, that will relieve US 1 and I-95. But your local roads are not going to be improved by the providing of more trains. You either have or you have to build more roads, or you have to slow down the moving of people into our region or whatever. There's a combination of things. That's why I said it's complicated.
it just seems like looking at those, and I know we're opening up, whatever, I'm just saying, like, to talk about some, look, we see what will happen even if we do all the build that we're projected to do. Well, to your question, what if we did it different? What if we looked at, well, what a robust transit system would do to those red lines? And I think that it's a mistake not to even have that conversation. And it doesn't have to be
Have you ever
today.
been to the western side of Stafford County? I'm just curious, I'm not asking like a facetious, but have you ever driven out to like the Stafford Fauquier line and gone down some of those windy roads like Poplar and Rockville
Yes.
Church?
Yes,
I can't imagine a transit system running those roads. Our school buses can barely run those roads, and people don't move out to that area to take transit systems to
So-
go east.
so
They just-
Crystal,
they
I'm not
don't.
suggesting that that's where we start. I'm suggesting that we have a conversation about what that would look like, maybe going up and down 17-3-1, you know, to look at some of those. I'm not suggesting that we go out to farmland to,
But that's where that's where he's talking about, like those people are driving.
I think we could do
So
a
the best
lot.
thing
I
could
think
do
we
is
would,
down them.
I think we could see a lot less red if we looked at some of the arteries.
So transit will work in the urban areas and in the more dense areas. It won't work in the more rural areas. That's where that is. And yes, it'll work in the urbanized areas if you have enough density, because otherwise the buses will be empty, right? You have to have, which is why Lida went to great pains to point out what you do with density is because density and transit work together. No density, no transit, right? They have to work together. You can't separate those two concepts. Lida, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we go on to the big item
This
for
is
tonight.
what you've all been waiting for, and I need to introduce to you the consultant who is patiently waiting for us, and I'm sure that he was not wildly excited that I've got everybody worked up before he has to speak,
Yeah,
which is
good
rather
Lord.
unfortunate. I hope you won't take I hope you won't take it out on Brad, because he's come here to present the river crossing study.
Percent on pineapple and pizza. Calm the room down.
Right, exactly, nothing controversial. Thanks again. So again, Brad Shelton and Michael Baker, appreciate y'all having me back. So we've spent the last several months making progress on the river crossing study. So really, we're here tonight to tell you what we've learned. So really what I'm going to cover tonight is the results of our analysis.
Yeah.
Sharing a lot of findings from data, from running models, from doing environmental assessments.
Pointed at the box.
Which box? There's which?
There you go.
It just
That arrow.
Oh, okay, it just doesn't like me. Thank you. Toward the end.
And Chairperson, we have two presentations from Brad.
Okay,
The one answers the question that was asked by Mr. Mullins, which is what happens if we build the Harrison Road interchange plus a river crossing?
okay.
And then the other presentation is all of the options for the river crossing that they will
There we go.
etc. So there
Okay.
are two presentations from Brad, not one.
Yes. Yeah, so we're gonna start with kind of the main event, which is the river crossing, because the Harrison Road interchange is gonna be cumulative.
Right.
You're gonna see additional effects of that, so as I was saying, I want to talk through the traffic analysis, we'll get the environmental screening results. We have some planning level costs that we're going to present to you. They were not used in the screening, but we'll just share those just for information. And then we're going to kind of wrap up with the big reveal, which is our what we're seeing right now is our top two options based off of what the data and what our work is showing us. But just a reminder for anybody that doesn't know why we're here, we're studying an eventual eco certification of a preferred alternative that will hopefully ultimately lead to a planning application for a new river crossing west of I-95 across the Rappahannock River. So the study area really is this area just adjacent I-95. We're not looking way out west, but that's been done before. So we're moving forward. We're at the study recommendation phase. You can kind of see the steps here. We've identified a purpose, we reviewed the alignments, done our alternative screening. So we're not final yet. Keep that in mind, we're not final yet. We're just at the recommendation stage. One thing I wanted to update you all on is when we went out to the public the first time, we took the four alternatives that we showed you when we were here a couple months ago, which was, of course, a little washed out, but we had an option A, we had a B1 that came up this way, we had a C, and we had a D. When we went out to the public and we worked with the stakeholder committee, we were informed that this option B is going through some prime proposed development areas.
Not happening.
So we came up with an option B2, which would avoid that area where we're seeing anticipated proposed development. Still uses the same termini, so it doesn't impact.
I don't know. Can you just give us a little bit of, because I cannot see that.
That's developed by,
Yes. So
So I see 95.
Still golf course.
Okay,
property.
okay,
Still golf course, if that's helpful.
all right.
Yeah. Yeah, so Celebrate Virginia Parkway here, Carl D. Silver, the 17 is up here.
Where's the Fredericksburg
Down here.
City development that got approved after we started the study?
It's around between that mustard line and the purple line down there. Just
Okay.
further south. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
right on the river.
Yeah, so we did get all of the planned proposed development, all the approved development. We had it all mapped out. We had all the footprints that we mapped out. So when we came up with these alignments, we did the best that we could to avoid any proposed development. But as I said, as we got to after the public meeting, we discovered that hey, there's some more stuff happening here. So we came up with this option B2. Other things to keep in mind that are important to note with any of the options tied to Celebrate Virginia, we also were assuming this green line here that would connect the termini of the ultimate pathway into Commerce Parkway. Because the idea is that we want all of these to really wrap up in a Commerce Parkway so that we can continue that voyage north. As this is really seen as a keystone of an ultimate north-south corridor on the western side of 95, going all the way up to the next interchange north. Remind me the name, Ian. The next interchange north of here.
So the purple line crosses at Commerce Parkway, which connects to Plantation Drive, which connects to Oslo and Enon Road, and the county, Stafford County, has an application in Smart Scale to connect Enon Road through to Centerport Parkway so that you can access an additional off-ramp on I-95 that already exists. So roads all line up so that if you build this river crossing, you build together with that Enon connector, a north-south roadway west of I-95 between the city and right up through Stafford County, which is long a dream of people and planners, but has never been materialized, never been realized until now. So if we get in the new year the success with that Enon Road connector small scale application, and we then build a bridge, wherever you build the bridge, these things are designed to all line up so that you have a roadway, a parkway, not a freeway with limited access, a regular parkway for local people to get around their region without having to get on I-95. Final quick comment before Brad goes on. We apologize for the quality of the coloring on these slides. I will email all of you all of these slides tomorrow. So on your own home computer, it will appear in full color. We were having some problem with this projector, and we've been working with GWRC to try and get either the globe replaced or get a technician to work on that projector. It's a newish projector, but it's just the colors are fading, and I can't tell you why.
Okay,
And last thing I'll mention, and we talked about this last time, but on option A, we are, envisioning this as a grade separation at Sanford Drive. There will not be a connection to Sanford Drive from option A. All right, I've got it all on map here, but this is probably harder to see. But anyway,
yeah,
if y'all have questions that I'm going through about which one's A, B, C, D, just stop me and ask, and I'll point to one here to remind you all. But essentially they go east to west, A to D. Okay, so from the traffic analysis standpoint, what did we do? All right, we really had two main sources of doing the traffic and operational analysis. We looked at the regional travel demand model. This is the same model that you all use for your long range plan. Same model that's you guys are getting outputs out of that you're talking about tonight. So we looked at that to see what the demand would be on the new river crossing. Is there justification to move forward with this? Will this attract traffic? And then we looked at what's referred to as micro simulation, which is where we kind of get down a little bit more granular to see how will this function, and not just with each alternative, but how will the whole network function with each of these alternatives. So we'll go into that tonight as well. Just because we have Beat out of the room, we did do this according to TOSAM 2.0. We actually did a lot of homework to make sure it was in accordance with TOSAM, which is VDOT's guidelines for doing microsimulation modeling. We looked at the future no build in addition to the 5 crossings, so you'll see all the options there as well. So I'm going to start with really the findings from the travel demand model. You know, the question we're trying to answer with that is, okay, how much traffic might this attract? And the answer is a fair amount. Looking at a new river crossing at the various options, we're seeing between 7,000 and 8,600 vehicles during the PM peak period using a new crossing. So you can see the numbers in the graph here. Option A would attract about 7,000. B1 and B2 are the same because they have the same termini. 8590, option C, 8170, and option D, 7895. Most of this traffic would be passenger vehicles. We estimate about less than 2% of trucks, of vehicles will be trucks. So most of this is passenger vehicles. The principal volume shifts that we would see to the new crossing would be from US 1 between US 17 and the Route 3 intersection with I-95, and then the I-95 local lane. So we would see the most traffic shifting from those facilities to a new crossing. Looking at the micro simulation, as I said, we drilled down and looked at to see how all the intersections within the study area would operate this is your 2050 with PM peak hour. And basically what we're seeing is the node build is this first column here, and you can just kind of just looking at this, you can see there's more reds in that column than anywhere else. So the good news is that the implementation of any option is going to reduce the average delay in the region and enhance the overall operational performance of the network. And let's see what this looks like. And we talked about volume of capacity earlier. The way we look at intersections is level of service, and we look at it, we measure it in seconds of delay. Delay is defined as how long you're sitting there in excess of normal travel conditions. So if you're sitting there for less than 10 seconds, your level of service A. Once you start getting over 80 seconds, you're in the EF territory, and that's really where you're not moving at all. So really what we're trying to focus on is getting rid of those E's and F's, and the network is not visible at all. There is a map under this.
Just imagine.
It's a beautiful map, just imagine. So what these dots represent is the delay at these intersections that we looked at within the study area. And
we've been working with GWRC to try and fix the projector. I'm sorry about this is US 17
yes,
going down here. This is US 1 going here. this is Central Park. This is Route 3 that goes out here. You can't see that unfortunately. It's on the slide, but this projector is really so this is US 1. Sorry, this is US 1, this is 17. This big intersection here is the intersection of 17 and US 1, right? It's where the big delays occur. And then you go down here into Route 3, and this is Central Park.
17.
I love that you all just presented that. I mean,
There's no place to. Right? Yeah, you're.
That's right. So this is our no build scenario. So this is what would happen during the PMP period in the year 2050 if we don't build a river crossing. We did include all the other improvements that are in your plan. So as you see, the color indicates the level of service, green good, red bad. The size of the circle indicates the level of delay, the magnitude of delay. So where that circle is really big, that's a really bad issue. So we could see kind of our worst issues are US 1 and 17, US 1 at Fall Hill, US 1 at Mary Washington Boulevard, Route 3 at Carly Silver, and Salem Church at Harrison. So if we go to option A.
The bottom dot, the very bottom red dot is Salem Church and Harrison.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So if we go to option A, you can immediately see a lot of that red fall away. We'll do that again. No build. Option A. From here, it gets a little trickier to track, so I'll just kind of walk you through it. As we go into option B, because these are all separate results, you'll see a red dot will pop up at Fall Hill and Carly Silver, but again, still less red than the no build. Option B2, very similar to B1 as we would expect because they have the same termini. Option C, we see the red dot at Fall Hill and Carly Silver go away. Option D, it comes back. But overall, we're seeing a fair amount of consistency. And again, the key is when we go back to the no build, everything after this is better. So we're seeing a significant reduction from that no build interdelay. So as I said, the implementation of any option is going to enhance the operational efficiency, operational performance of the network. As I talked about, where we have intersections that are level E and F, those are the bad ones. Quite frankly, most departments of transportation don't have the funding to do anything with level service A through D. If something's A through D, it's generally going to be okay. It's not really going to get any attention until it gets to E or F, because that's failing. So what we're seeing is at the no build in 2050, we have 6 intersections that are E or F that are no good. With the implementation of any option, we can reduce that to either 3 or 4, what we refer to as failing intersections. So we're seeing an improvement there. When we look at the total system delay, so if we were to count up the delay on all those circles for the whole network, option A and option D are the top 2 options with the least amount of delay. So those boost the regional operational efficiency on average. So we saw A and D as our front runners when we total up all of the delay in the region.
That's a good question, Madam Chair.
Excuse me?
Question.
Yes.
Do any of these options require the demolition of someone's home or?
We'll get to that.
Okay, so we're,
We'll
okay,
get to that.
thank you.
Yeah. All right, but not quite yet. One more slide on the traffic, and then we'll get to our environmental factors. Something else that I want to point out, again, we had another great map here. But we do have some labels here where you can kind of see where these dots represent Celebrate Virginia North, the Geico Center, Mary Washington Hospital, Spotsylvania Town Center, Harrison Road, Salem Church Library. We did what's referred to as a OD analysis, origin destination analysis. So These locations were identified as some of the top origins and destinations in the study area, based off of using street light data, which we talked about. You can use cell phones earlier tonight to know where you're parking. Street light does the same thing to tell you where people are coming and going. So these were some of the top destinations in the study area, based off of using that cell phone data where people are traveling. And we did an origin destination simulation. And what you'll see is in the no build, if we're going from O1 to D1, which O1 is here and D1 is here, you can see that went from 27 sections in no build to 14, 18, 18, 18, 18. So across the board, you're seeing a reduction in your travel times compared to the no build with the river crossing. So these are the most popular origins and destinations in this study area. So you can see it's a significant reduction in your travel time in the region. It is, I will note, it's difficult to just say, okay, let's add all these up and see which ones got the shortest travel time. It's really hard to interpret that way because we have some origins and destinations that are directly on some of the options. So those are going to come out way ahead than all the others just because of where the origin and destination is located. But what we really wanted to do was just look and see, okay, are these better than doing nothing? And the answer is yes, significantly so. Okay, moving on to the next factor, the environmental factor. So the way we did the environmental analysis is we took a 250-foot wide study corridor and applied that to a map and said, okay, what are we hitting in that 250-foot wide corridor? But one thing to keep in mind is that the actual facility is only estimated to be about 100 feet wide. So even though we're looking at the impacts within 250 feet, the actual facility is only be about 100 feet. So the idea is that when you get to the design stage, things that you are potentially impacting, such as someone's home, you have some availability to maneuver and do what's called avoidance. The representative typology, this is what we're expecting for this facility, 4-lane divided with the multi-use path. That's what we assumed. And that's how we came up with that 100-foot wide width.
Before you move off that
Yes.
slide, it's very important to grasp this. The study corridor is 250 foot wide. You're not going to build a 250 foot wide roadway. You're going to build maybe 100 feet. And the reason I say that is because some of the impacts you're going to see now in the environmental study won't actually happen. It's allowing for the maximum possible width, not what's actually going to be built. In none of the options would you build 250 feet wide. And that's a key thing to know as he now goes into the factors. So they've taken how many properties will be impacted in the 250 feet corridor, which we would never build, right? So it's going to be a lot less than the numbers that he initially shows you.
Slide back a little bit. There we go. All right. So we used, we're technically referred to as secondary data sources, but that essentially just means we use data sources from federal, state, and local sources. These we followed again, essentially the NEPA process. This is a planning and environmental linkages study that we're using. So we want to make sure we're doing everything in accordance with that process, so that eventually, if we do get to a NEPA phase, we can handle that over, and the data is not going to be refutable. We separated the impacts into high, medium, and low by really just looking at the range and dividing it into thirds. And then we color coded it, which hopefully you'll be able to see. Nope, you will not be able to see it. So this is color coded. I apologize for not being able to see it, but I just want to run through what we looked at. So we looked at first off, the purpose and need. The purpose and need that we discussed and we vetted through the public and through the stakeholder committee is whether or not a new facility would help establish an interconnected grid system of roads, establishing that north-south corridor on the western side of 95. would establish a new multimodal connection across the Rappahannock River, being able to support bicycles, pedestrians, and transit. And would it create additional routes for emergency responders, as we identified a need for when there are incidences on I-95 and things kind of go haywire in the region when you folks cross the river. So first off, all options supported the project's purpose and need. So no issues there. We already talked about the travel findings. We looked at community input. So that's all the comments that we received from the public through the first series of the first public meeting that we had, as well as the comments that we received from folks who submitted either by email or who took the survey online. So we added up all the comments that we received supporting certain corridors and opposing other corridors. We looked at the impact of conservation easements. So this is where that 250-foot corridor comes in. We mapped out all the conservation easements. So we added up the acres that are impacted by the 250-foot corridor for each one of the alternatives. We also looked at the number of trails that were crossed by each of the alternatives. We mapped the resource protection areas and again, looked at the number of acres that were impacted. We looked at the Rappahannock Preservation Area from the City of Fredericksburg Comprehensive Plan and the impact there. We looked at 100-year floodplains and floodways, wetlands, streams and rivers. Then we looked at approved development and proposed development. We looked at historic battle sites where we have archaeological sensitive areas. And then we looked at the parcels with existing commercial structures, existing residential structures, and any other structure that doesn't fit into one of the other two categories. And to answer your question, you can see we did a pretty good job of trying to avoid the houses. So in option A, there's one residential structure that might be impacted, and we think we can avoid it within the corridor. Option D, on the other hand, there's 63.
No.
So what do we learn? As we talked about in all options support the project's purpose and need. All options attract significant demand and reduce study area delay. Options A and D provide the greatest reduction in delay. Options A and the B options have the most community support. Those were most favorable in the public input period. Option D had the least community support. Unsurprising, since there's going to be 63 homes that are impacted. Option A has the highest, most favorable, least impactful environmental screening results. Option D has the most impact from an environmental screening perspective. So option A is the winner from the environmental screening, and option D is in the last place, and in between you've got the B's and the C's. And if you come out Wednesday, we will have maps that show all this in great detail for each alternative. We are being fully transparent at this meeting on Wednesday. You're going to see all the homework. Before I move on, any questions on the environmental screen?
We'll send the full color versions to you tomorrow. I apologize again for the screen.
I feel like you got them. So I was looking.
So we did present just the environmental screening the last time. We didn't present any of the traffic modeling. So the traffic impacts you haven't seen before, you have seen all these environmental slides. Correct.
Okay. Planning level cost estimates. So before I reveal them, preface, we did not screen on the cost estimates. This is just for informational purpose at this point. And one of the reasons why we did not is because when you're following the NEPA process, you cannot use cost to drive your decision. So we used, VDOT has a really handy kind of back of the napkin tool called Splice. It's not the most refined, and we're not going to be using that for our ultimate cost estimate. We're going to be using the more detailed tools. There's one called Cube that cost estimating workbook that really gets into the nitty gritty. That's what we're going to be using for the final cost estimate for the preferred alternative that comes out of this study. But just for back of the napkin, just to give us a magnitude, you can look at the alternatives that we had. Option A, we're looking at 282 million. This is using 2030 construction dollars, which 2030 might be a little ambitious, to be honest, but we use 2030. 282 million. Option B1, 222, B2, 265, option C, 203, option D, 260. So I'll start with the 2. I think no surprise on which ones are a little bit more expensive, the ones that are a little bit longer and require a bit more construction.
And option A has that extra little bridge over Sanford Drive.
Correct. Which, if another option were implemented at Sanford Drive, that could bring the cost down. So yeah, there are other options. Okay, all right, the big reveal, the consultant preferred option. So going out to the meeting Wednesday, we wanted to have two front runners to try and really get input on the two that we think are the most viable. Of course, folks can provide input on anything. If they hate these two and they really want option D or whatever, that's fine. They can give us comments on that. The first thing I want to mention is off the top, we decided that option B1 and B2 were so similar in everything that we just saw that there was really no reason to advance B1 because B2 avoids that proposed development. They both accomplish the same thing, but B2 is going to have a reduced impact on that proposed development. So right off the top, we decided that needed to. Sure.
So I just have a question about this proposed development. Who brought that forward to you?
So we had county staff pointed it
Yes,
out
county staff.
in the stakeholder group.
And it's not by right? It has to be approved by the board of supervisors.
It's one of the Dell Web projects that is
I'm
in
just
the works.
curious.
It's not a Huawei project.
I understand that, but you're acting like it's a good thing that we want to avoid it. I want to cut right through that sucker. So why would you avoid that option? I'm just like, who gave you that direction?
It's typically done for these studies. You'll remember when we set up the study, there was the project in the city of Fredericksburg, which was actually approved. And so we
There's a
were
big difference between approved and proposed.
sure, but this board gave us advice to find out as much as we could about developments that were going to, or probably, or might be occurring in the area to see how that would impact these developments. And then the jurisdictions at the stakeholder group brought us plans, drawings, and so on to feed into the information that the consultant had to look at to consider these options.
If I recall, that was particularly after we found out that something had been approved in Fredericksburg that we didn't know about, and then we said, we want to make sure that all of those things are considered.
Correct, so.
Right. Yeah, just in general, we try to look at reduced impact. But again, this is not our decision. We're not in the final stamp on this.
There's nothing significantly better about B1 than B2. There's not some other
So
big
could you
thing.
just put like option B2/B1, like they're.
Sure, we can do that.
Sure.
Really what we did is, I mean, this is just very high level because we didn't assume any weighting. We didn't assume that environmental is more important than intersection data is more important than public support. So we just ranked them all, 1 to 4. And that's kind of what you see the totals on the right. So again, option A clearly provides, it's a leader in delay reduction. It's a leader in the environmental screening, has a high level of public support. So we're really seeing option A as a viable candidate at this time. And then likewise, we see option C as a viable candidate. It provides the next best reduction in intersection delay behind option A. And it has a pretty favorable environmental screening result. And one of the advantages that we saw having over the B options is that it has a reduced impact to the Rappahannock Preservation Area. And again, the proposed developments that we spoke of. So again, nothing is final. Final will not be determined until after we hear from the public on Wednesday. We're going to have a 30-day comment period where folks can provide input by email. We're going to have the the survey we will have at the meeting, available so folks can complete it online. So once we get that second round of public input, then we're gonna have another conversation and see where that moves one ahead of the other. And if option A and C don't end up being the front runners, and so be it. This is just what we're seeing from our analysis. So again, just a reminder which ones those are. Option A is the furthest to the east, and option C is the one that kind of does the dog leg across the river here.
And connects to Celebrate Virginia Parkway.
Celebrate Virginia.
And what is up with the dog leg portion right there? What is it trying to?
So this avoids there's a right-hand preservation area that runs through here.
Gotcha.
And by coming across here, you're avoiding a lot of that. And if I remember correctly, there's also some topographic challenges if you try to go across here. So that's also going to reduce the cost of the bridge by coming across where you don't have quite an elevation change going across the river.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So either way, 2 of those options or 3 of those options are using Celebrate.
Correct. Yes. 3 options are using Celebrate.
Okay.
It's just gonna go down.
All right, so that's time for the advertisement. Again, Wednesday, we'll have the public meeting, Fred Nat Stadium, 5 to 7. We're bringing everything. The public will be a fully transparent process. The public will see everything that we, all the information that we arrived at. I think we're bringing something like 20 boards that we're gonna have set up. So it'll be open house style. Folks can come in whenever. We know it's hard to get everybody in the room at one time, so we find an open house style works the best. We'll have staff there in the room where they can come and ask us questions. We'll have a comment form for folks to give us their input on what they think of what we found, and if they have a preference. We are going to ask them to rank all these options 1 to 5, including the B1 and B2 as separate options. So we'll get input on all 5 of these from the public once they've had a chance to review all of the outputs of the analysis.
And they're all on printed boards, so if there's a technology problem, we won't have the problem tonight. Yeah, printed in full color, that'll be easy to read.
Okay, any questions on the river crossing before we start talking about the Harrison Road intersection?
Anybody have any questions? No? Okay, Drew, do you have a question?
On Harrison Road,
No, on the river crossing.
I have many questions on the river crossing. Yes. And I won't, we can talk about it at the public meeting.
Okay.
Good.
You're breaking up.
Yeah. Yeah, I won't be breaking up on Wednesday, that's for sure. All right.
There's a bit of good news for you on the Harrison Road front, so we'll show you that next.
Oh, Pam, did you have any questions?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
Awesome, thanks.
I'm sure Drew likes Harrison Road. He was interested in that. I'm messing with him online.
Right.
You good?
All right. Ready to jump into Harrison Road?
Yep.
All right.
I think let's crack on.
Okay, let's go. In addition to the river crossing analysis, we were also asked to do a little separate analysis off to the side to say, okay, all right, what will happen if we build a river crossing and we do the Harrison Road interchange? We understand that the Harrison Road interchange has been modeled by itself. Of course, we've modeled the river crossing by itself, but they hadn't really been done together. So we wanted to say, okay, what happens if we look at the aggregate benefits of both of these potential projects? So we used the travel demand model. We used the microsimulation model, which we did in the previous slide deck. We used alignment B2 for this exercise, which is the one right here. The only reason we use B2 is because it's in the middle. We had not developed all the results that you just saw in the previous presentation when we started this exercise. So we didn't know how the 5 options would shake out. So we said, okay, We really just want to see just cumulative, if there were an arbitrary line across the river, how would that impact Harrison Road with the Harrison Road interchange? So we just use B2 just because it's in the middle, has no bearing or on our selection of the preferred alternatives for the river crossing. So just like we saw before, hey, is there demand if we have both of these options? Significant, again, PMP period used again. Yeah, significant demand for a new river crossing.
I'm sorry, can I
Yes.
stop you for just a second before we go? So you're using B2, but the preferred one is A,
Yeah.
right? So are we really getting a true representation? Why wouldn't we want to look at both of those options?
Well, we did these in parallel. We didn't have the results from all the other modeling in order to do that with the Harrison Road. The Harrison Road was to take one option. So we didn't know which would be the front runner when we did this exercise. So we said, okay, let's just pick one that's centrally located. And that should really kind of give us essentially the average. Because we're not getting the extremes of an A or a D. Yes, you might see a little change if you used option A. It's not going to be significant, to be honest. It'll probably be within the error of the model. So that's why. And the results that we saw in the last presentation, we just got those last week. So
Okay.
That's hot off the presses.
All right. Thank you.
Again, like we saw before, significant demand for new river crossing. Again, the significant shift of volume from the I-95 local lanes in US 1. If we add the Harrison Road interchange, it's going to increase demand on the I-95 through lanes because you're going to have people traveling further south to get to Harrison Road. And it is going to induce slightly more demand over the river. Anytime you add additional roads, you're going to get a little bit of attraction to that facility. Both option B2 alternatives reduce the demand on US 17 between Banksford Parkway and US 1. And we're going to show a map here in a second. The addition of Harrison Road also reduces the Route 3 traffic demand west of the I-95 interchange. And both alternatives provide overall decreases in delay with a pronounced decrease local roadway delay. And let's see what that looks like. Okay. You can't actually see this. This is good. So if we have option B2, just option B2 by itself, compared to no build, what we're seeing at PM peak is you'll see, and again, this is if we build option B2, which would be here. So there's zero traffic there, which is why it's a big fat red line because it's attracting a lot of traffic. You're going to see a decrease on 95, slight decrease on Route 3, 17. So that's just option B2.
And US 1.
Yeah, and US 1, sorry, yep. If we go over to option B2 with Harrison Road, if we look at how little this Route 3 line is, and then it goes red. If we add Harrison Road, that becomes a pretty fat blue line right there. So we're seeing a pretty significant decrease on Route 3 along this entire area when we add Harrison Road. So you do see a cumulative impact, significantly impacting Route 3, which is where you expect, since it's, obviously Harrison Road is down here. If we look at the third image is this B2 plus Harrison, but let's just look at the impact of Harrison. The impact of Harrison alone is a significant decrease on Route 3, significant decrease on the Salem Church, I believe. And then you can see it actually reduces some of the traffic on the new facility, on the new crossing. So you can see that together, they work pretty well. So you are seeing a net cumulative benefit with both of them together. If we look at just the crossing volumes across the river, these are all the crossings in the Fredericksburg area. You see on the 95 through lanes, we do see a slight uptick. We're at 10.9 with the no build, it goes up to 12.5 with Harrison. But again, you would expect that because you're putting a new interchange. You're going to use 95 to get to that new interchange. The local lanes, you see a little bit of a drop going from 21.2 to either to 20,000, so about 1,000 vehicles drop. US 1 bridge going from 12,000 vehicles to 9,500. So a not insignificant reduction on US 1. Chatham, slight reduction, Ferry Farm, looking at maybe net, 600 vehicles reduction. So really across the board, on your local crossing options, you're seeing a benefit. So if we look at, look at the region. If we're looking at the net benefit of both of these projects, the blue is just option B2 by itself. When you add Harrison, you're seeing that delay actually get reduced. The delay number, sorry, let me say this again. The delay reduction actually gets a little worse if you look at the whole network as a whole. But that includes I-95. Like I said, I-95 traffic is going to go up because you're building a new interchange. If we take I-95 out of the equation, you're going from a reduction of 600 hours of delay to 1,300 hours of delay. So your local roads will see a tremendous benefit when you add Harrison Road plus a river crossing.
So are you saying that we build these two projects, I-95 will not benefit, but the local roads will benefit significantly?
Correct. And the impact on 95, where to go? Again, it's slight. It's 1,500.
So
vehicles at peak period.
So we're not shifting I-95 traffic to the local roads. What we are doing is making the local trips better by a large amount.
Significantly.
I think that was the goal of the study, so that's pretty good.
Will,
So I assume you cannot take from this that doesn't tell you anything about doing Harrison Road by itself without the river crossing.
Correct. We were tasked with doing Harrison Road by itself.
Okay.
I believe, have y'all?
That was
You know,
looked at
model here-
before.
A long time ago,
Right,
right?
yeah.
95 stuff.
Yeah, that's been assessed already previously. The task here was to say, we build the river crossing and we build Harrison Road, what happens? Is there a net benefit by doing both?
Right.
Rather than one or the other?
It just looks like bang for buck buys. The local road congestion is improved more by Harrison Road than by the river crossing, or is that a mystery to the-
Depends where you're counting.
Okay.
So for example, US 17 improves a lot by building the river crossing bridge. But Route 3 improves more by building the Harrison Road interchange.
Right, okay.
Right. However, if you put the two together, you get the best of both worlds. Because then Route 3 gets better and 17 gets better and US 1 gets better. And Salem Church gets better. So the cumulative effect is quite a lot better than just building the one. But of course it costs more money, so.
Well, and you can't just build the interchange at Harrison Road. Harrison Road has to be widened
Yes,
in order to take all the traffic that we get off of Harrison.
but we've kind of publicly committed to widening Harrison Road and it's in our CLRP. So unless you take it out of the CLRP, which is, you have authority to do that. Currently, it's in the constrained long range plan. So it is, we have at least that level of commitment to proceeding with that project. And Spotsy has been given a small amount of initial funding to do the study for the Harrison Road interchange and bridge widening in, was it last round of CMAQ allocations, I believe?
Just a quick question. So Harrison being improved, is that both east and west?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in the constrained long range plan as an item on the list with a cost estimate. But of course, when we rework the CLRP next year, that cost will go up because it's costed in 2021 prices. But we've said publicly that's what we're going to do in the future one day. So we've said it.
Right, let's look at intersection delay, which I know everybody loves. So again, just as we saw in the previous slide deck, we looked at the intersection delay. Now, keep in mind, the difference here is that what we saw in the previous slide deck were, you know, distinct, different findings. These are cumulative. So as you go from left to right, you're seeing a cumulative impact.
And the colors suddenly show up now. This
Oh,
projector suddenly decides to work.
Well, we're gonna test it here. She'll pull a map up here in a second. We'll see if it's really works.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so really what we're saying, we already knew that option B is or any river crossing is gonna create improvement over the no bill, but the construction of Harrison, it takes things even further. You'll see.
So,
benefit.
sorry to interrupt, I just don't want you to go.
Sure.
So Salem Church Road at Harrison Road goes from a E to an F with option 2 with Harrison.
Yeah.
The last line,
Yeah, this one.
Oh, there, yes.
We do see,
Yeah.
we do see a decline in that one.
So there's a reason for that, because when you put the Harrison Road interchange, all the traffic comes onto Harrison Road, right? That's obvious.
Right.
So it's obvious that that will happen. Unless you widen Harrison Road, right? But the point is, when you build Harrison interchange, you have to widen Harrison Road. It's part of the deal. But that shows you that there's going to be a significant amount of traffic getting off the highway at the new interchange. Now, you might think it's a bad thing, but actually it's a good thing because it shows that it's worth building the off ramp because lots of people want to go there. We just now need to deal with those people when they get off the interstate are going to need roadway to drive on. So Harrison Road has to be widened.
Right, and then you've got Fall Hill and Carl D. Silver Parkway going down a notch too there. Okay.
So
What were you gonna say, Chris?
But, does that also include the improvements that are in the pipeline? Was this study with the improvements in the pipeline for Salem Church and Harrison?
This is the full build scenario, right?
Yeah, it's E plus 8.
Yeah,
So
it
that's-
includes all those projects that we have currently.
Yeah, so, you know, to Ian's point, whenever you reroute traffic or build new facilities, you know, there's going to be a need to look at your intersections again. And whether that's something as simple as retiming, reconfiguring, adding turn lanes, there are things that you can do to mitigate where you see a drop here or there. But what we're really focused on is the cumulative impact in the study area. You know, you can just off the bat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reds to 3 reds. So we're improving the network, but that doesn't mean there's not still work to do.
Right.
The protector's still broken. So if we look at again, this is the no build. This is the same map we saw before, the same no build map we saw before with lots of big red circles. All right, if we build a river crossing, we see that the red gets smaller, and this is what B2. So B2 is one of the ones that still had the red on Carlton Silver and Fall Hill. If we get at Harrison Road, you see those circles shrink down even further. So you're seeing a cumulative impact. So we'll do it again. No build, river crossing plus Harrison.
But Harrison remains the same, pretty much.
Gets a little worse. And that's because we're building an interchange there. So as Ian was saying, widen Harrison, look at what's going on at that intersection, and you can mitigate a lot of those impacts through looking at signalization, modifying that intersection. Could be turn lanes, could be, you know, I don't want to say the roundabout word, but you know, there's options that are out there that you can look at to mitigate.
And when you looked at Harrison, did you look at what the impact of doing that at Harrison would be as far as, you know, takes and you know, all that stuff?
So we just looked at the impact from the river crossing perspective from the environmental impact. So we did not study Harrison Road. We just put it in the model to see what it would do from a traffic standpoint.
Yeah.
That's all we did. Yeah.
And then they did micro simulation as well, those intersections to tell you what will happen to the intersections. They didn't do an environmental study of Harrison Road.
Because I'm just, you know, knowing that road, there's there's some new development that is fairly close to the road. That one new development,
All of that right away for the expansion of Harrison was supposed to be in there. I voted against both of them, so.
yeah,
it's-
that was
but it-
before, I think before my
So
time.
the,
I think
Yeah.
I think it's-
Yeah.
the
okay.
theoretical design for Harrison Road wouldn't be a spaghetti interchange with a big cloverleaf circles. It would be, I think they call it a rural diamond,
Yeah, that's right.
which has the long straight.
Ooh, like a
Off ramps that-
diverging diamond, it's not a diverging diamond?
Uh,
I like the diverging diamond you guys have,
okay.
that's fun. Feel like you're on the wrong side of the road in Stafford.
There's a whole FedEx study that'll tell us what kind of change it'll be.
Oh, okay.
So we're putting the cart before the horse.
That's the study we're starting to allocate funding for in Stafford. Spotsy, I keep saying Stafford.
Is there any federal funding for this?
For what?
For the bridges?
I'm gonna report everything.
There is no funding at this stage on anything. You have to
Oh,
apply,
really?
and we are working with VDOT at the moment on what it would take to make sure that this would be a smart scale application.
Okay.
For the river crossing. There's certain documents you have to produce, there's certain numbers of things you have to consider, so we're working through that. A smart scale application, if it were successful, it would be funded 100%. We could also consider a federal grant application, but almost all the federal grants that could fund large projects like this have a 20% local match. So we can apply for those, and there are grants every year, they open those grants for applications. But if we do that, it would be on understanding that we would need to, in the region, raise the 20% local match through some other means, because the federal grant will only pay the 80% of the cost. So that's where we are right now, today.
So just, the conclusion is, yes, when you add Harrison to a river crossing, things get better. Looking at option B2, we went from, six intersections in the red and no build to 4 with option B2, and then reduce that down to 3 with Harrison. And to your point, we looked at option B2. Option A only had 3 in this column. So like I said, I don't know the answer, but if we were to remodel it using option A, this number could go down to 2. Because one of the ones that's carried over is that polygon carbon silver that was apparent with the B2 option. That's not present in A. So, but the main takeaway is, yes, things get better, and significantly so, when you add in these two together. So you start to see the cumulative impacts of doing multiple things together. Again, we did the peak hour origin destination analysis again, just like we did in the last slide. Again, these are cumulative this time. So you're seeing going from 27.2 to an 18 to a 16, a 36, 19 to an 18. So you're seeing quite a drop in the number of minutes it takes you to get between these origins and destinations. And for the most part, I think they all get better with the exception of this one. That one actually gets a little worse for some reason.
But it's still massively
It's,
better than the no.
Yeah, it's still significantly better than the 40.
The difference is
3 seconds you were just taking you before.
the difference is tiny. It's from 11.1 to 12.2.
It's 3/10 of this. Of
It- Tiny amount.
Yeah. Yeah, so this just says what I just said. One thing to keep in mind is these are the O&D pairs that we just picked for river crossing analysis. If you were to pick O&D pairs further out in the region, given what we see about this total impact on the local roads, I think you would see that trend follow regardless of where you dropped O&D points in the region, because of that massive reduction in delay on the local roads when you have these two projects together. But that was like beyond our scope, but we just wanted to point that out, that these points are specific to the river crossing. There's probably even better points you could pick if you just want to look at the impacts of Harrison. And that's,
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you very much for that presentation.
And apologies again for the, I don't know what's wrong with the screen.
So we need to give you a new projector, is what you need?
I
Yeah, we
think,
gotta get a new projector. That's what needs to happen.
Exactly.
would you check?
Yeah, I'll talk to you.
Let's get one out of Spotsyl's building.
So we will email you the full bright colored ones, but tomorrow morning you'll get them. So apologies, we'll send them to you.
I just want to make sure I'm clear, because this is happening in my district, and I'm gonna have to answer questions probably tomorrow. So it's going out for
You're gonna have to
comment.
walk through that door first.
Comments Wednesday in the ballpark. Then after that, what is the next?
So we're not shutting down the public comments. We're leaving it open.
Till when?
The last time we did this, it was around about the same time of year, and I remember you said, should we not just keep it open through the start of the new year because of the holidays?
Yeah,
So we think that 30 days is the minimum, but we can keep it open like 45 days. It wouldn't be any problem to us to do that. It just gives the public more time to comment, if that's okay with you all. And then the consultant will be making presentations to, or the same presentations really, to our other 3 committees. So that, you know, they get a chance to also look at this and discuss in their committees and that kind of thing. And then the results of the public comment and all of our committees, including yourselves, comment will be collated by the consultant. So we get an overall picture of what people feel and think and their viewpoints about the study. Then they need to sum that up and come back to you with the consultant's preferred options. Once they've heard from you all, once they've heard from the public, they will collate that and come and say, we as the consultant feel whatever is the best path forward. And so that will come in the new year. And then once they've discussed that with you, they will then need to write up the report and bring you the report for approval. So we've got a couple of months left still in the study. First of all, our committees, then a report, but then also a report back to you on what the consultant suggests is the preferred alternative.
I mean, I'm sorry.
We have access to, like, the public comment, like that data and stuff. I know that they're gonna have, and they're gonna bring a representation, but will we get access to be able to see?
yes, I mean, so we'll compile everything. And we usually will develop a summary report, but the actual comments do get recorded and saved.
Okay.
So you know, again, this is a fully transparent process. So yes, if you want to see it, you can absolutely provide it.
The previous study, we had something like 32 pages of collating of all the public input. So the same way we'll do a public input report. That'll be part of the final report, which will say what everybody said. And if there was a majority view on certain topics, they'll make a summary of the majority views and so on.
And
Just to add to your summary really quick. So after they're done their report, then it comes back to FAMPO. We not only have to vote on an option, but we also have to vote as a committee
To adopt the report.
to adopt the report, but then we have to go back to our localities. Then we have to find funding. So there's still a lot of steps. Yeah.
Well, the point is, at some point, you will have to decide if you wish to proceed with the project.
Yeah.
If you wish to proceed with the project, then we have to do a couple of things. We've got to put the project in the long range plan in some shape or form. We don't need to put it in the CLRP until we have funding, right? If we have no funding, we could put it in the needs list in the long range plan. Then we need to apply for funding. And then VDOT will take over the final NEPA process, which is to get a NEPA certification. We don't do that at FAMPO. VDOT, it's a big deal. They've got to test soil and all kinds of technical engineering things. And then they have to, within the corridor, they have to, you know, all that wiggling stuff.
Yeah.
They have to work out the best path. That's an engineering process. That's not a popularity process.
Like 2 different paths to work, so like, that way if they do the initial NEPA certification on out, I don't know.
So typically, we would have a I don't want to use the word preferred because it has a technical meaning, but let's say a recommended option. VDOT during the NEPA process still has to make the other options available for public comment again. So it doesn't close off that process. But for them to start, they need to see that there's a commitment from us to carry on with the process. They need to see that we're prepared to put it in our long range plan. They need to see that we committed to finding the funding. And you then have to decide whether or not you want FAMPO to put it in as a application. Do we submit it as a small scale project for funding, right? That involves a whole bunch of stuff. So that's a decision that you would need to make. Do you want us to submit it or don't you? And the same would apply for the federal funding. Do you wish us to submit it for federal funding when the next round opens or don't you? And in order to submit for those, you've got to have a report from the study that's finalized. There's supporting documents that have to go with the application for funding, which have to be prepared. It's a process. But I think VDOT wouldn't want to start working on it if there isn't a commitment to follow through, because for them to do work and then there's no commitment locally would be a waste of time and money.
Are we looking at both of these together? Like, or we?
So this study is for the river crossing.
Only, so we're not.
Because we haven't designed the Harrison Road interchange, that needs a separate study, which has to comply with federal requirements. You can't just put an interchange on the interstate without the federal government's involvement. So that has a separate study, but Spotsy has already got, they've asked for, I can't remember if it's STGB money, but John would know. We've put the first bit of funding to this project in Spotsylvania to start to study this bridge widening and interchange on I-95. So that study, and we're not interfering, it's, as far as we're concerned, Spotsy is going to lead that study, but if they wish us to do it, you need to let us know. But they applied for some funding was allocated. It's not enough to finish the study, but it's seed money to start the process. So that would have to be a separate study. The reason we did this is because Mr. Mullins was concerned about some of the impacts of building the river crossing. And one of those, 2 or 3 of those impacts get repaired or remedied by building the Harrison Road interchange. So things that were of concern, they basically go away if you build the Harrison Road interchange as well.
Gotcha.
But nothing takes you to zero. Everything is a compromise, right? It's traffic is like water. It rolls around you. When you tweak it here, it pops up over there.
Yeah. Marcy, did you say that was studied before? Or is it?
Done the I-95 corridor study, looked at an interchange there at Central Park, looked at interchange at Harrison. I don't know where else it looked at, but it looked at different options, yeah, and it came out that an interchange at Harrison Road would benefit both the Route 3 interchange and the Massaponax interchange. Because right now, if you live on Harrison Road or somewhere, you have to get off at one of those two. So if you had your own interchange, it would relieve pressure on those two interchanges.
But it didn't go far, and it was just a kind of a surface study then.
Correct.
Okay.
It was a corridor study, and the interchange would need a separate interchange study to comply with federal requirements.
Okay.
Which is what I think Spotsy is planning, because they asked for some funding towards it.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
If I just had just 2 more comments. First off, Mr. Riggs, that was a great point. We actually are going to have a board at the meeting on Wednesday that talks about the process of what comes next, because we don't want people coming to the meeting and thinking they're going to see bulldozers in the backyard tomorrow. We're still probably 10 years away at a good estimate.
Their grandkids might see.
That's right. The other item I just wanted to mention as far as process is, once we have a preferred alternative, the other items we have scope to do is develop a detailed cost estimate and a project sketch for that preferred alternative. That's going to give you what you all need to move forward into a funding application. Those take some time. So I just wanted to make you aware that once we have that preferred alternative, we still have some work to do before this thing comes to a close, but we'll get there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we're on to the Stafford's, support for Stafford, FY 25 raise discretionary grant application. Ian, you want to go over?
So this was a request from Stafford County for a letter of support for their raise application. Typically, we just approve these things because it's really up to each jurisdiction to
To approve.
Okay. All those, any discussion on this item? We're good, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. And then, letter D is Falmouth Bridge mixed use path, letter to Governor Youngkin and Secretary Miller. Will, you wanted to bring this one up?
Yeah, this is just some
Yeah.
conversations that we've been having in the city and with our neighbors in Stafford about the upcoming Falmouth Bridge replacement. And we just wanted to make sure that it's on record that it is the preference of the localities. You know, we are each individually submitting our own letter, but also if we could get the policy committee to submit a letter too, that it's the desire of the localities that whatever they do there has mixed use paths on it. So
Makes sense.
proposed letter, if you guys were willing to support it, I think then it would just go in the file. And I don't know if you want to talk any more about this, Steve.
Well, one thing that was left off of the numerous bullets was Stafford sent a letter from, I think your EDA, month, 2 months ago. So that letter's just not listed on there. If you
Okay,
wanted to add-
so we probably need to add that to this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so, I'm not sure, I gotta ask. Yeah,
Can
so,
we see what that letter says? I
We'll
don't
need
know
to
what it
amend
says.
the whole.
yeah, we'll need to amend it.
Yeah,
And I can come by and sign it if you
Okay.
guys want me to.
Sure.
That's fine.
But I move to approve that.
Move to approve with the change. Okay,
Second.
all right, any discussion? Yes,
I would like to say really quickly that when Will approached me with this and we talked about it, because that I know you've been working very hard to get support for this. I completely support it. I think that we should do better.
Yeah.
We can figure this out.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Appealing for support is good.
Anybody that-
I think everybody's good.
No, I don't think so. It's a
Yeah, I
question
think
of
everybody-
resources, right? This is,
It's at the bridge, so you don't, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
yeah, I'm gonna let Marcy go ahead. She's the expert on this, not me. Yeah.
Maintenance on the bridge, a rehab project on the bridge. Depending on what rehab project we do, we can't widen it. So I mean, if we just do a deck replacement, we can't really widen the bridge for a separated multi-use path. We can put like sidewalk that's maybe a foot wider on each side, and that's about it. But because if it's a deeper rehab, there's a possibility that we could put a multi-use path on it. So it's just right now, we have to make a decision on what repairs need to be made and how much money it's costing.
Is it helpful having this letter, or is it really out of our hands, out of the governor's hands? And it's really a distinction of the repairs that are needed, because I get it, you can't widen a bridge that's already there essentially.
Correct, so I mean, it's not gonna hurt anything that we're doing, you know, I mean, if the governor decides he wants to require the secretary to give us additional money, hey, that's great, like, we'll put you whatever you want. So I mean, it's not gonna hurt what we're doing. Will it
Not gonna
make the final
yeah.
decision? I don't know that it will.
Well, it's important to know that
The whole area supports. the
Right.
multi-use path. Yeah.
Right.
We agree on something. This is. a big
This is
deal.
really,
Yeah.
somebody get the newspaper.
Well, it's pretty common sense. I mean, if you're doing the work now, let's just do it the right way for the future, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so discussion, any other discussion points? Okay, all those in favor?
Should we copy our delegation on it though, like all of our delegates?
Yeah.
I like that idea.
I love
feel
it.
Yeah.
like they should always be the CC line
Okay.
at the bottom.
So the motion then is to amend the letter and copy the delegation.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
You could,
Aye.
one more
Oh,
edit.
Good Lord, girl.
You could, never mind, because I said letter to Youngkin, I was gonna say you could request our delegation, but we could request our delegation. Maybe you could send this letter to all of our delegation and ask them to send these letters as well. I think that would go a long way.
I was meeting with Tara Durant today about something else, and I just mentioned this to her, and she said, well, would you like us to send a letter?
Yeah, I think that would be great.
I feel like they all would if you just sent it to them.
Can we just clarify the language? So you're gonna say that yes, we must send it to the delegation, and you're asking the delegation to do what?
you said, so we're gonna send this letter, you're gonna CC the delegation of
Yes.
all 3 jurisdictions. And then you could forward this after it's edited to all of our delegation and say, the FAMPO committee took a vote last night and we would request you to submit a letter of your own supporting this to Governor Youngkin and the Secretary of Transportation.
Okay,
Give us the money.
understood.
We don't know how much it is, but just give it to us.
Okay, so we're gonna CC, we're gonna add that letter
I can
in,
make the motion if you want.
right, but I'm writing it down here, so. CC the delegation and ask the delegation to send a letter of their own,
To the governor and the second.
okay? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that, all right. I don't write it down.
Then it didn't happen.
All right, now we're on to the tip amendment and modification process policy.
John,
Good evening, I'll be very quick. In 3-year spans, we typically do between 23 and 25 tip amendments over the 3-year life of the tip. We've done 23 in just over the last calendar year. As a result, FAMPO staff has sat down with our VDOT partners, PRTC, VRE, Red Transit to try to draft something that will help streamline both our state partner and local transit agencies, as well as FAMPO staff, so that we're having less tip amendments and changes that are basically in the cycle of tweak and do this in between committee meetings. So they're either coming in extremely late, incomplete, or basically lacking information, like from various to various. And that's very difficult for us as staff, as well as for the various committees to actually approve these projects as they're moving around. So we've developed a draft. And what we're doing here is actually copying a lot from the state STIP requirements. So things like scope, construction or project phase, termini, descriptions, when the amount of funding is being allocated to ensure that to advance tip changes, we have that in advance. And in particular, we're asking that you also have project descriptions so that we can actually say, this is for sidewalks in between Market Street and Bank Street, for example. Just something very simple that our partners can ask or provide that allows us to provide better information. And if they are making a change, attend the meetings, particularly for the tax, so that we get explanations if we have questions. So that's laid out in this policy. It's directed not towards the public, it's directed towards our state and transit agencies that are making tip changes and modifications, and allow staff to kind of say, hey, it's an hour before the TAC. We needed this 6 days ago to say, no, we're going to pause on this. We do have emergency language built into this policy that if it's a state of emergency, it triggers certain kind of bypasses. Or as their capacity of members of this board, you can, like, if Marcy needs to bring another Germana sidewalk extension project, can still do so. It's just, it stops the multiple revisions of a tip adjustment coming in before and after kind of the documents go out for public review and to this board in their email. So that's what was developed. It was developed with our partners in the room and we typed this together.
So this,
we want you to approve it so it becomes the FAMPO policy. It doesn't make it very much harder for anybody, but it does cut down on some of the messy applications we're getting where they're incomplete or it's a crisis, we must rush it, and then we find out actually it has to be pulled off again because there were errors in it.
okay,
So
so it's not gonna
just
supersede any process that we have then.
just tidying up a messy process.
We also have a calendar that specifies.
All right. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Great.
Okay, and then the letter to the secretary, the FAMPO future congestion, we had talked about this before.
Correct.
So this is just kind of putting it out there that the letter is there, okay?
Oh,
Because you're
yes.
separate.
It's actually, it's not really an action item, it's just,
Are you doing
You-
it then?
yeah.
You approved it without a draft last month already.
Oh.
I'm just showing you the draft and showing the chairperson the draft, so it's not done in the dark corner somewhere. But you voted to send a letter,
Right.
so here's the letter.
So we're good, yeah. Okay, and then staff and agency reports, I think we beat the dog to death here with the,
Line is that still this evening? This one. Next slide. We didn't have a public involvement coordinator during that period of time. Next slide. These are the events attended, the people who reached out events. Next slide. These are the events attended. Next slide. So the items received and with the handout at events.
Misprinted mugs.
Yeah, those
I love shows.
Are those worth money?
Yeah, plenty of those, yeah. Social media, slow down a little bit because I think the impressive numbers. And the line is doing a great job. I going to, getting some input from our Carroll County Department, King George, next slide. He's done a great job getting written comments. You received some of the last meeting we had, received through this outreach effort. And we had about 50 written comments that are March for crossing meeting, and we will be topping that next Wednesday. Next slide. And we have an impressive all subscriber list. We just sent one out today with the reminder about the meetings, and that number continues to grow each month. We added over 164 to those. And out of 80 that were added to our mailing list in August, 8 of the people signed up in person at the events that Eugene attended. And I think the next slide's it.
That's it.
There you go.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, so we do have something we have to figure out with the committee meeting schedule.
Correct. There are 3 dates. We mentioned this to you at the meeting last month, and some of you needed to talk to your jurisdictions to check about the dates. So there are 3 dates, January, February, and May, where the meeting would fall on a public holiday or some event. And so
Just cancel it.
typically we move. Just tell the tip people in the room who apply for their tip amendments, they're gonna wait 3 months. So yeah, the January, February, and May ones would
Fourth Monday.
occur on the same night as the GWRC board meeting, and last month you gave us an indication that you would prefer not to do that, but that means picking a different day, and some of you needed to check with your jurisdictions whether that was. So we schedule those 3 meetings on any day you want, but you
Yeah.
just needed to tell us.
Because Meg's not here, did Stafford check?
So the question was actually that Spotsylvania wasn't sure that they would be ready with their annual, what do you call it, where you authorize your board?
Oh, with the
members?
board, that happens January. What's our,
First meeting. is
the-
second Tuesday.
yeah, the
Yeah, ours is
14th?
the 14th.
And so
Or the 7th.
this meeting is, Becky, could you just help me with the date? I can't
Yes.
see the screen from here.
We would normally have held it on the 27th. We were proposing the second Monday, the 13th in January. Your Spotsylvania regular board meeting would come on the 14th. This is a holiday, which is present.
So the 3rd Monday is a holiday, and that's why it fell off. And in previous years, we shifted it 1 week later, but it's.
That then puts it, the meeting of GWRC.
We don't meet in July, correct?
Correct. And December.
Yeah,
It'll be cool.
The 13th for the policy meeting.
Sure.
yeah.
Let's do it.
And in February, it would be the 14th of February.
The 10th,
10th?
second Monday.
Sorry, I can't see from here. So the 10th, would you be okay with the 10th of February?
I'll have to check.
So,
Because the 17th again is a federal or state holiday.
Yeah, I think let's move it to the 10th. Did we decide the 13th again?
yeah, 13th is fine.
So we can do the same thing in February, move it to the 10th.
Great.
And then in May,
In May, our meeting would start at the normal 6 o'clock meeting. The GWRC meeting would be after that because
before at
the
5,
before.
at 5,
Hard stop.
they would have a hard stop
Yeah.
within 1 hour.
So we provide food for everybody.
Provide food for who?
Everybody. Everybody.
Oh.
So
Ah,
I like.
So in other words, our meeting is staying on the normal day, but they are gonna be meeting from 5 until the start of our meeting at 6, which is very tight.
I am.
And Chip's pretty good.
This
about
is the chair.
Oh, you're-
So you will chair both meetings.
Well, then you better be done on time.
I guess I was told. Yeah, all right. Well, that's fine. I mean, we could,
Could it start FAMPO at 6:30?
just to give us
yeah.
a little.
We do need some time for
How much you guys want to talk
It's up-
today? What's on?
It's up to you.
Also, that's an option. I mean,
Not asking you to be, can you get it all done in a minute?
But couldn't they move it
No.
earlier the way?
So they've
haven't.
informed,
Yeah, exactly.
so in May, it's the other way around. They've informed us that they can't have their meeting on their usual day and they're moving it to our Monday. But they've told us that we shouldn't change our time because they're going to meet from 5 until 6. They've informed us. We haven't.
Chip is very optimistic.
I agree with you, but
Can we just do 6:30? That's a great idea.
Yeah,
6:30.
6:30, that, an hour and a half should be good, right?
fair.
so in May, we'll start at 6:30 instead of 6.
Half the staff or people are gonna show up wrong time, probably.
And May is
Wait.
May 19th,
We will
right?
send a reminder
Make that change up there for 6:30 start, make it a special color.
and we'll send a reminder.
You can see the colors.
And just to all members to remind you that we do not meet in December, so you have a month off from our meetings. And we don't have a meeting in July, so you would have a summer recess for the month of July as well. So don't come here next month for the meeting. There's no meeting. There is a special TAC meeting to discuss CMAC, but it doesn't affect you all.
So our next meeting then is January 13th.
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
So I guess it's a technical question for Ian. Most of the elected bodies go dark in August. So why do you have July off, not August?
So that was a decision taken by the policy committee. Was it 1 year or 2 years?
We
The-
don't go dark. in
The
August.
option was to the board to,
Okay, just curiosity.
and the board chose that. It's either we close in July or we close in August, and we used to long before my time close in August. And then they took a decision to close in July and have a meeting in August, so it's, I mean, you can change it again, it's all in your power to do that, it's not.
Curiosity thing, because we go dark for that month for August. 'Cause they'll-
Yeah.
they're-
We
So
do
what-
July
what do you
because we're
count?
off in July.
I'm sorry.
She was just saying that Stafford's off in July, so that's why she thought it was July.
Okay, there we go.
So it's on, we go back to school.
Right, right.
Staff is totally neutral, we'll schedule a meeting whenever you want to meet.
Okay.
What?
Not the sign.
Do,
Subway.
So I think everybody,
Oh,
all of us are.
if you want to meet, then
There we go.
we don't.
okay, so are you good with that then, Bob? Are you good?
Oh, no, it's just a
Okay.
curiosity question.
Okay. All right,
So no meeting December, no meeting July, January meeting, we'll see you on the 13th.
anybody have anything else for the
If there's-
good of the order? No? All right, then,
You gotta be square.
we got Spotsy in the morning, you gotta come to Spotsy.
Are we invited?
Yes, of course.
Do we get special parking or what?
Yeah. I don't think I get special parking, right? We don't even get special parking, do we? I did it 1 year and it was in front of Merchant Square, yeah.
Y'all don't get to walk in front of the parade or something?
We get in cars, like classic cars.
Chairperson, just remember you have to close the meeting.
Yes, so, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carry on talking, I just wanted to.